Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at The Creepin' It Real Show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com.
Deep breath, deep breath.
Yeah.
With that, welcome to the show. This week, it is your host, Christy, and we are going to be talking about some really, really fucked up medical stories with our special guest, Kim from People Are Wild. People Are Wild. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, you got me for your medical stuff. I guess du jour, right?
Yeah. Uh-oh. You're cutting out a little bit. I hope that isn't going to be what the show is going to be like because it's been a nightmare this morning. I'm still like shaking because I was panicking. So, Yardley, what's going on with you?
Hey, everything's good. Made it to another weekend and look forward to talking some weird news and getting into some of the crazy stuff that Kim has seen in her life.
Hey, Moni over there in SoCal. What's going on with you?
Hi, I'm looking forward to this conversation, and at the moment, I'm literally sitting here in a bikini waiting for my beach attire to be done in the dryer because I'm going out the door to the beach with the family right after this, so it's an exciting day all the way around.
Wow, that's awesome. We don't get to do that here in Atlanta. But I want to go on to the weird news really quick, and then after that I kind of want, before we hear Kim's stories, kind of hear about her story a little bit and what her podcast is about and her job, and then we can get into her crazy stories. But Moni, I'm reading this title and I'm literally dying. Would you like to share your weird news story?
So yes, with a little bit of a personal backstory is I woke up so I saw this article a couple days ago, and it didn't even occur to me to use. I was like, oh my God, but I didn't occur to use it for me to use it for weird news until this morning when I woke up with a very swollen pink eye. I don't have pink eye, but it's swollen around the eye. So I'm getting some kind of infection, and I'm a little freaked out, and it's kind of painful. And it reminded me of this story, which is the blemish moving around on a woman's face. This was in Russia. I mean, because of course. The blemish moving around on her face, which started at her eye, which is exactly like above where the brow bone is, and that's exactly where my swelling has started today. It also moved, she posted it on Instagram, then it was under her eye or near the nose, and in the photos, then it was in her lip. It turned out to be a parasitic worm that had to be removed. So she was a 32-year-old woman, and she took photos as it progressed around her face. And I'm trying to see if it shows, it looks like it was through a mosquito bite that this occurred, which we get plenty of that everywhere, so that's not great. Not far from Moscow in a rural area where she recalled frequently being bitten by mosquitoes, experienced occasional itching and burning as the worm slithered under her skin. So it sounds like they're usually found in dogs, and it doesn't say how big this worm is, but I can post this on our Facebook page. And you can see that this thing is, it's not stretched all the way out, but this is, I would think, 3 inches, but very skinny of worm that was living in her face.
Oh my God. Yeah, it says it was a heartworm, like what normally would be in like heartworm for dogs. That's disturbing.
If you're looking at the link, picture B, where she's showing it above her, like above her eye, that's what my eye looks like this morning. So I'm concerned.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it looks pretty messed up. I think more than anything else, though, even though you know that it's probably not going to kill you, it's just a fact of having to have that in while you wait on something to be done about it. Has to be the worst.
I think I would crack open my face and pull it out myself.
Gross.
Point.
Kim, you ever heard of anything like that? Have you ever seen a worm in somebody's face? Kim? Is she here? Where'd she go? Kim?
Yeah,
I don't see her.
I think she might.
See her.
Well, I think she's in Skype, but for some reason, I think whatever's going on with her audio, it's kind of having an issue.
Well, it was fun while it lasted. I'm still trying to get her, but in the meantime, we're just gonna. Yeah, she dropped. Okay, hold on 1 second. I will add her. Yardley, go ahead and talk about your weird news.
Well, all right. Well, today for my weird news, well, there's a woman. Her name is Lynn Lu. She is on Facebook. Now, granted, I don't know if Lynn Lu is her real name or just a name that she has on Facebook, but apparently she was online, and there is a video of her giving her cure for acne. Her good skin and such. So she did a video, and apparently what her cure is drinking fresh urine from her dog. And
oh my God, the picture.
Gross.
The video. Like if you click on,
but I mean, it's a still photo that when you go to it, and she's just drinking urine, and then she's like kissing her dog. Oh no, she's not kissing her dog. She's drinking urine from her dog. Alrighty.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so out of control. And when you watch the actual video, because sometimes that people want attention, they want to get hits, and they want to draw people there.
Yeah.
But I for some reason, and I'm like, nah, she's not trolling. I think she's really drinking this
because
she believes it. Yeah, because she believes it. And even the dog looks taken aback, like, what?
He's probably like, leave me alone. Do you want to be, have anyone that close to you while you're trying to pee? I don't think so.
Exactly. I'm totally with you on that. But if you get a chance, you just have to type in Lynn Lu. I believe her Facebook page is public, but that video is there for all to see. And I tried to kind of rationalize with myself. I'm like, is this fake? Is she doing, But it really.
It looks like it was in real time that this was recorded.
Yeah.
So
it looks like it's totally legit. And not only
still
that,
warm. I'm gagging watching the video. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's on a lot of different, news outlets are talking about it, mostly European, because they're out of control. But I actually clicked on it, and I went there myself, checked out her page. It's a legit page. So I don't really think it's someone trolling, but we'll post that on the Creeping It Real Show Facebook page as well. Creepers, take a look at that. Is this something that you would?
Oh God, she's licking her fingers.
Hey,
oh my God, that is disgusting. And then this dog is like, I thought like I was it, like it was like its dog, and he's like, she's drinking its pee, like she's the fucking animal, like the pet, and he's like, whatever.
Do you think that she's feeding the dog certain stuff to get it to taste a certain way?
Honestly, she's gonna go for Red Rocket facial next.
Oh my God, you did not go there. Oh my God.
But
her skin, to be fair, her skin is beautiful, and as someone who I don't like aging, I'm fairly vain about my skin. If I wouldn't do it, you're a fucked up individual. So.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you take a shot of piss, you can get that parasitic worm out of your face.
Oh, well, there you go. How's one new problem to solve another?
Y'all are nasty.
Now that's all I got, because basically after I saw that, I was like, all right, I don't think I need to add 2 stories. But
is that all you got? You're like, just some chick who drinks her dog's pee for clear skin. That's it.
Hey, you know what's funny? I mean, anything else, it's at least worth it to go there to kind of read the comments, because you already know the comment section. It's like,
I'm gonna be gold. Gold, pun intended. Oh,
golden.
Check that out, because it's definitely some humor. You could literally be on there just reading comments for an hour. It's so awesome. But anyway, bless that girl's heart, and I hope her skin stays not fucked up.
Hey, Kim, can you harm yourself by drinking urine?
You know what? Did you ever see that episode of My Strange Addiction?
Yes.
Where the lady was obsessed with her
but
urine?
I've heard of it. No, I haven't seen it.
It was her own, wasn't it?
Yeah. And she used it everywhere. She was like, it's for my facial cream and all that stuff. And I just can't even imagine the smell of somebody who just constantly drinks their own urine, and when they're talking to you, just like having a
She probably sweats her own pee out of her sweat glands too. Like, ugh.
I bet she's just all about zero waste.
Uh-huh.
That's what I mean. That's really. I mean, pee. okay, whatever. What does she do with her shit then? I mean, if she's
probably
concerned about her pee, you know, like, then she takes a crap. I don't. Okay, well, moving on. I have the last weird news I have is MIT created a psychopath, artificial intelligence, by making it read a Reddit forum. So it's not like we don't have enough fucking psychopaths in the world, but apparently MIT decided to mess around with the computer and literally created a monster. They are a team of researchers that specialize in like the darker side of artificial intelligence, and they named their latest creation Norman, and he sees death in whatever image he looks at. So they created they wanted to prove that artificial intelligence algorithm could be influenced by the kind of content fed to it, which, of course, it's like anything else. So they made Norman, named after Norman Bates, read image captions from Reddit that features disturbing footage of people dying. And it's so messed up that even the Huffington Post doesn't want to share the Reddit forum that he read it from. So after that, he started looking at or generating ink blots and compared the way the captions to what he saw and what he read. Like one of them was man gets pulled into a dough machine these are just like ink blots, and then he explains what he sees in them. And so one is a man shot dead. Man is murdered by a machine gun. Which a normal AI would see a black and white photo of a baseball glove. Like he sees just all disturbing images anytime he looks at an ink block where normal AI wouldn't see that. One of them, like a standard AI, was a person is holding an umbrella in the air, and he saw a man is shot dead in front of his screaming wife. So yeah, that's disturbing, and let's hope that he's, kept in a pretty secluded area instead of like feeding it to all the other AI. And then we've got like, what is that movie with Will Smith? Is it where all the artificial robots like start?
Oh, iRobot?
Yeah. iRobot. There we go.
It's based off a graphic novel, actually, which was even better than that movie. But yeah.
Is it? I'll have to read it then. But yeah, always like, just waiting. Like, here comes Skynet or something. So Which, speaking of Skynet, this is totally off topic, but because me and my son have been watching, he's never seen all the Terminator series. Well, so I've been watching the good ones with him.
Good, yes.
I just found out they're making a new Terminator, and Linda Hamilton's in it, and she still looks freaking awesome.
Did you see a picture of her from set?
She's a badass.
She looks like the same. Her body looks exactly the same. I was like,
yep.
Damn. Whew. Anyway, so that's exciting. So, all right.
Maybe she used pee on herself, and that's why her face looks so good.
Yeah, we don't know.
Pee. Yeah. Anyway, so Kim is our special guest, if you haven't noticed, and thank God we got her back because I was starting to shit a brick. And I wanted to really quick ask you how long you've been in the medical field, what exactly it is that you do day to day, and a little bit about your podcast as well. So let us have it.
Oh, the spiel, if you will. Okay. Yes. I have been working, it's a little interesting, my backstory, but the best way to say it is that I've been working emergency room trauma and wilderness medicine for 8 years. 6 of it has been in hospital, and then the 8 years I work here and there with search and rescue and different stuff for wilderness medicine. So I'd like to say I have a particular set of skills. I don't know if it would help if somebody's in a taken situation, but I'd like to think it would, maybe. I don't know. I'm not Liam Neeson. I try to be, but I'm not. But right now what I currently do is I'm a travel nurse. So every 3 months I go to a different hospital throughout the country. And I've been West Coast to East Coast to West Coast, and now I'm back on the East Coast, and I'll probably go West Coast in September for my next gig. So I live it up, I guess, if you will. But right now it's been pretty great because for the past 2.5 years I've been traveling and just seeing the country and doing my own thing and accumulating a lot interesting things throughout the nation because I do usually work overnight, so I work night shift for the most part. And let me tell you, full moon fever is a real thing.
Yes,
it is. I don't care what they say. If you talk to people in medical, if you talk to people in law enforcement, can confirm 100% full moon fever is a thing.
Moni.
No, so
Moni knows.
Papers know, but I'm a librarian, which sounds like it would be mundane. And the reason why you think that it still is because librarians are fucking ninjas at keeping shit like covered up and like fixing shit before anybody else notices. But we have noticed that are people that are, drug addicted or just mentally ill or both definitely act out more when it's a full moon. So we
and you can almost
look up
time
the moon
it.
Cycle.
Yeah, exactly. You start like looking around going, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then somebody's like, wait, Google when the full moon is. And you're like, fuck, it's today. Why am I working? Why am I always working a full moon shift? Always full moon shifts.
So you have a medical van. Is it yours or is this a company? Like, I'm always like, this fascinates me.
So my van's name is Dwayne, and Dwayne is essentially a mobile ER that I have retrofitted myself.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, in a way, I can do like mobile stuff, but it's not sanctioned. But there is stuff out there, especially like in Vegas and bigger cities, where they do like mobile infusion things where they'll come to a person's house, which I think is sketchy, or they'll go to their office or wherever and they'll meet them and they'll do like IV drips on them. They're touted as like hangover vans, but other people use them when they're like, I know I just have food poisoning, I just need fluids. Or it's really interesting though. It's this side business that a lot of nurses are doing and starting up on their own. So, but for me, if and when the apocalypse does happen, I have my mobile hospital, my mobile ER. So everybody will be fine. Sometimes I call it the Ark. Sometimes I just call him Dwayne, but it's a trusty minivan, and it's a legit mom minivan too. It's not even like the Sprinter, big old $80,000 thing. It's like a mom van.
Whatever works.
Awesome.
So it's inconspicuous. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, people don't pull over a mom van.
No. Can you imagine being pulled over and like they open up your van and they're like, holy shit, what is this?
They're like, why do you have some
Never mind, ma'am. Go about your way.
They'd look in the back and be like, why are there needles in there? You know what? It's been a night. Just go. It's full moon. I don't care at this point.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, she's going to discuss like her top 5 most fucked up cases that come to mind in her, through her profession. So number 1, it says mummified toe. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. Okay. So this is not uncommon that, shockingly, in the United States, in our healthcare system, people don't like coming to the hospital and don't like coming to the ER, especially if they don't have insurance, because they're afraid of the bills. So that's a whole nother topic. But usually you get some people in there that fall through the cracks and they haven't been to a doctor in years and they really should be. So that's what happened. We had this patient come in one night and he was really sick. And I was helping the other nurse. We were getting him undressed, and we kept smelling something, but we weren't sure what. And at some point, like this was a little bit more towards the beginning of me doing more ER nursing and trauma nursing. So my sense of smell wasn't as refined as it is right now to identify things. Like you have me and a cadaver dog, and I think we can do the same in terms of finding out where dead bodies are at this point, just by the nose. So at that point, though, I didn't really develop that I guess, refined sense of smell as to what we were smelling, and neither did the other nurse I was with. But we kept smelling it, and we looked at this guy's legs, and we're like, oh, something's kind of different. And I didn't tell you this part, but we tried to pull off his socks, and it was
God.
We couldn't. Like, it was almost like adhered in there. So we were like, let's just wait for the surgeon, because this guy like obviously had infection in his legs. We just didn't know how far down it was going because we couldn't peel off these socks. So we were trying to like soak his legs in just some water and some sterile stuff to also clean it while we can like wait for it to be a little bit looser so we could take it down. And at that point, the surgeon had come down to the ER and was saying that, I'm going to take a look. And at this point, he'd been soaking the legs for a while. And so we go in there and like we're taking it down little by little, and we're realizing like this is dead tissue for sure. And when we get to like his foot, and we take it off mid-foot, and we're like, okay, you know, still tissue, and then we take it off all the way, and like his toes were like shrunken in a way, like pruny, but also really stiff. And the guy looked at his foot, and we're looking at the surgeon, and he's looking at the patient, and he's like, you haven't been seen for this infection in how many months? He's like, well, I don't go to the doctor. It's been years since I went to the doctor. And he's like, I noticed this wound on the bottom of my foot, and I put like duct tape around it, and I thought it would go away. And then I just couldn't feel it, so I figured it was gone. And his whole foot was like dead. And his toes were to the point where like they were like shrunken and mummified. So the doc was like, well, this is what happens when you don't go to the doctor and you don't have people look at your wounds. And he broke off the guy's big toe. The guy didn't feel anything.
Oh my god!
And he said, this is why he's holding the toe, and he looked at the guy and he's like, and this is why you're going to need to get an amputation. And he put it in a biohazard bag and he just passed it along to me. And I was like, what do I do with it? Like, where do I put this? I just like walked out of the room, and I went to my charge nurse, and I was like, where do I put this toe? And she was just like, just put it in the trash bag, like in the bio bag, I guess. And yeah, so that guy went to surgery, and he had to get both of his legs amputated below the knee.
Oh my god!
Because of his infection, and he waited so long. But like, he just literally broke off this guy's toe, and it was so fast how it happened that the guy was in shock, and then I think I stood there, and I was like, what is going on right here?
That's pretty rough. You wouldn't have learned anything from me, because I would have, as soon as it would have gotten to the point where I felt like we would have had to soak it just to loosen it up to peel the sock back, I would have just walked in like, we got to amputate. It wouldn't have even been.
Hey, looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. What's the fucking point? Like, I'm walking in the room with a fucking buzzsaw, and it's on. But that's kind of crazy. But hey, I give you credit for your fortitude, and I know it definitely has to be a learning experience. But wow, that is insane.
Oh yeah, no, that was just one of the trippiest moments, because the surgeon didn't even like. He was just like, this is why you need to be seen by doctors more regularly, and was able to break off a toe. I was like, you want to talk about a mic drop?
Yeah.
Like, that's like the ultimate. It's like, here's the toe drop there, man.
Shit.
It's like stating the obvious, though. It's like, I mean, for real. Like,
he's making a point, but it was like, he's just like, just another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaking off this guy's toe. Was he like a wilderness guy that was out in the wilderness, or like a homeless man, or just some like dude who just had a life and like walked in and thought, hey, I might want to get my foot checked?
So he was like this, just like this man of the mountains,
okay,
where he just didn't go into the doctors anymore. If he really didn't, he was like, I could handle everything at home. I'm still alive. Clearly I'm doing things right.
Oh,
and I know, and I think his son went over, and his family's estranged, so his son went over to check on his dad just out of the goodness of his heart. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, something stinks. And I think he was just like, oh, I think it's my dad's legs. So he drove him in, and the son was out of the room at this time, and he came back, and he was asking us for an update because his dad had surgery, not to surgery, he was getting imaging done before the surgery. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, yeah, you're gonna need to talk to the surgeon about what he's gonna do, because some stuff went down while you were out in the cafeteria.
He's
also,
probably,
do you want this toe? No, I should have given this.
You should be like, here's a keepsake.
Yeah. You can put this on a necklace.
Yeah, oh god. Or a keychain, like Moni. Moni wants to put everything on keychains, so she'd be like, dead toe on a keychain.
And go right next to my anatomic skeleton.
That's right. All right, number 4 is the drunk guy who arrived in the ER and he would only play Freebird.
Yo. So this was a full moon one, too. This was definitely a full moon one. I remember this night. Because it was just like a shit show on a full moon. And like, even if you're working it, you're like, something good's almost always going to come in on a full moon. It's like something weird, or like some hilarious drunk, or just like some combative like motherfucker who's just like crazy, strung out of his mind on like K2. But in this case, it was a drunk guy who came in on an ambulance gurney. We get like the call ahead that it's an intoxicated guy who took a fall and he hit his head and he has a pretty bad cut on his head that needs to be closed up. And the thing with like intoxicated people, when they hit their head, that you worry about is if there's a head bleed going on, but you can't tell because they're intoxicated. So there's certain signs you look out for with, if a person's got a head bleed, you know, they'll kind of be, I guess their mental status changes, but if you're drunk, you can't tell. So you kind of are like, you know, we got to image you. We got to do this whole thing. So we knew that coming in, and we were getting the room set up. And then all of a sudden, like, I just hear like a guitar, and I looked at the other nurse and I was like, who's, because it's night shift. And I was like, I wouldn't put it past one of our nurses just to be like, it's a full moon, I'm going to play guitar for the unit. But I was like, man, is that one of our people playing guitar right now? And like, I hear it, I keep hearing it getting closer too. And I was like, who is coming down the hallway? And sure enough, like, they swing around the corner into my room, and he's full on playing a guitar shirtless, just bleeding from his head, playing Freebird. And the medics are cracking up, like, trying to give me like a good report. The doctor walks in, and we're all cracking up. He's a nice drunk guy. And you know, we scan him, we get him imaged and everything. And in between, he's asking us, like, can I go and stand up and like go and take a piss? And we're like, well, not yet. We got to just do some stuff. We got to make sure, you know, you're not bleeding and your brain's okay. And so we clear him of all that. And then after that, you're like, okay, well, we'll let him sleep it off until the morning, because everything turned out fine on him. And then at some point during the night, he stood up in the bed, and because we had secured his guitar, we had to remove that, even though we wanted to go to CT with it. We were like, we'll keep an eye on it, but don't worry about it. Nobody will touch it. I can assure you, nobody wants to touch your guitar.
Yeah.
So he stood up in the bed, and he peed over the side, and he peed onto one of our computers.
Oh my God.
And that, it didn't like necessarily like short anything, because that's when I thought to myself, I was like, oh, this could be like Grey's Anatomy or something, where, you know, the hospital just gets lit on fire because a guy shorts out. It didn't happen, but we couldn't use the room. Like, everyone was like, we're gonna have to replace some of this. And then later on towards the morning, he was able to get out of the bed. Like, it's easy to get out of a hospital bed once you're kind of with it. You just like scoot to the end, and you can walk out the side if you don't know where side rails are, or how to get side rails down. And so he walked over, and he kind of waddled, stumble-stepped, and he took a shit in our trash can. And I'd like to say that's the first time that's ever happened, but that was probably like the 5th time that night. And it was...
At least you're in a medical facility. I have stories from the library that I'll tell the most recent one in a minute. But yeah, that's a common occurrence. So anyways, go ahead.
It's like libraries and Starbucks. Like, my friend used to work at Starbucks and is like, oh, we had so many people who poop in our trash can.
Yeah.
Why?
Planters and the bathroom outside of the toilet. And yeah,
everywhere but the toilet is where they're going to poop. And I never understood that, but that's like a huge thing that happens in the ER, at least to my patients. So I still do, I make ER bingo cards sometimes, and patient poops in the trash can is almost always like, yep, that's like almost every other thing. Yeah, it might as well be a free space right now. It might as well just
I like that. I need a library bingo card, clearly.
You should do it. Start trading it.
My staff would love that.
Oh, I love my job. I love my job. I got sprayed with shit, but it was from a cow. So I'm like, yeah, I'm okay.
At least
like,
you can help it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like, yep, I'm cool with the fact that I don't have to deal with that crazy shit. I don't know if I could handle cleaning up shit from somebody pooping on the floor or pooping in a freaking planter. I don't get it. I'm just, what?
It's
why?
just compost. It's just fertilizer.
I know, but not indoors, you know? Oh, gosh. Okay. Yardley, you want to bring up number 3? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Just...
Or do you want me just to go
Introduce number 3.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I called you out. I didn't mean to. Yeah, I just thought I'd give you some time to talk, because you're with 3 women, and you know that's going to be difficult.
You'll never get to talk again.
Well, it would have been an easier way for me to bring it in. I was actually like kind of going through reading the other ones, but let's see. Number 3, can you tell us a little bit, Kim, about a patient trying to make a break for it?
Yeah, so this one was in the South. I don't know why I need to preface that, but I guess I just need to set the scene.
As people from the South, it will make sense to us. It's okay.
Okay. I don't want to like cause any divisions and be like, oh yeah, this only happens in the South, because it doesn't, but it's one of the more memorable ones. But this guy had, so, you know, in the ER, you see people who are on drugs, you see people who get shot and stabbed and all that. And then you also see people who have mental health crises. You know, you see people who are suicidal, who are manic, who have hallucinations telling them that, you know, this, that, and the other. So you see people in a lot of various states of mind. So one of our mental health patients that was being evaluated, he was having a hard time. And most of the time with a lot of mental health stuff, like you have special rooms that are low stimulus for people. So there's not really anything in it. There's nothing that they could harm themselves or harm you with. So they're pretty much like bare bones rooms. Mm-hmm. And he was not having that, I think, on this particular night. And it was another full moon night, now that I remember it. So we were trying to go through the assessment as best as we could. And he was kind of pacing around the room. And at some points you just get used to it with people, and you just kind of pick up on like signs where it's like, okay, they're okay, now they're starting to get not okay, now I might need security. And he hadn't reached that point of needing security. He had been somewhat cooperative. And then at some point he just, like, I had left the room to go and I think grab a wristband for him or something, and like his name tag, not just like a wristband, it's not the club, I guess. But he ended up just running out of the room. Like in that little bit, he just ran out of the room. Even though he had people watching him and other nurses, he had been fine. He'd just been walking around in the room. And then all of a sudden he stopped and just bolted, like Usain Bolt bolted down the hallway. As he was going down the hallway towards what he thought was the exit, which really it wasn't. It's the back part of our ER. So he would have to go back and then come out. There was really only two ways, which is the ambulance bay and then the main entrance, and he was running the opposite way. But there's patients obviously in the rest of the ER, and this poor little lady was being wheeled out to go to imaging in her bed, and he decided to do his, I guess, best impersonation of like an Olympic hurdler. And he decided to try and clear the bed in one jump. And he almost made it, but he ended up stepping on the woman.
Oh my gosh.
And then like kind of went over the other side of the bed and like popped up and then kept running. And then he got promptly like really great tackle by one of our guys who actually was like a former college football player. Like all of a sudden it was just like, boom, guy was down. And so they handle it. They do everything. They bring him back to the room. This poor lady was like, I'm fine, but she's not, because he kind of like stepped on her arm or something. So that's not uncommon to see. And it was a whole thing. But
he was naked, right?
Well, yeah. So the other thing too is like he was running down the hall. He's taking off his clothes, I think, at the same time, and then started screaming about El Diablo. So I mean, it was just like, for working there, like in the staff, you know, atmosphere, you're like, okay, this is just like my Thursday. But I was like, I felt bad for that lady, because this man's just barreling over to her bed and then steps on her arm and is screaming about El Diablo and is like halfway undressed, then gets tackled right by her bed. And she's just there because her belly hurts.
Oh my
and gosh. Now she has this whole big thing, and it's like security has taken down this person, and God bless security people in general, but especially the people who work in ERs, like across the board, because they're the unsung heroes, because they have to touch like naked people, and like rest them down to the ground.
So that's good. Yeah.
Well, is there a mandated amount of security guards that you have to have in a hospital, you know, or is there? Because now that I think about it, you know, and I've been in hospitals to visit people, you know, and things like that. But there's actually, I never really noticed, you know what I mean? The security that's there. Like one time there was an incident where, it was actually in my family. A family member had died. There were people, you know, I know working there, you know, some people tend to be a little bit more animated, a little bit more emotional, depending on what's going on, right? So the security was called, and it was a couple of guys, but they were like, you know, they were they weren't necessarily the people who were in the best of shape themselves, but it was only, but it was just them. And I'm just curious, like, does every hospital facility like have to have 2 people in the ER, 2 security people, or 3? Is there a certain amount, or how does that work?
It depends on the hospitals, mostly because, so I've worked these big, like, inner city hospitals all the way down to really small rural hospitals. So in the bigger city ones, absolutely, there's 24/7 security on standby. There's usually 1 or 2 guards that are in the ER. When I actually worked in, not where this happened, but another facility in the South, they had an actual police officer, not just like private security. They had private security and a police officer in that facility because they just see so much gang violence that they want to be able to protect their staff against any other threats. And I mean, that happened. So I used to actually work on the border twice. I've worked actually on the border between the US and Mexico. And that wasn't uncommon for security to be present, like 2 or 3 people in the ER, and then to have either undercover cop or a uniformed officer in there as well, either 24/7 or essentially 24/7. And that's usually due to just the gangs and stuff, because you'd always have people. We had one time where a person got dropped off by one of his homies in our ambulance bay who was bleeding from his neck because he got shot through the neck. And we took him and we put him in a stretcher and we started doing stuff. And then we heard stuff down the hallway in the ER. And it turns out his friends had found a way to get in through the ambulance bay. And they were armed and they were running up, and it was a whole thing. And they almost took like people hostage in the triage room. But the police were already there at the hospital, so they diffused it really fast. But it was like stuff like that I was like, oh, that's why they're here 24/7. Okay. Because I didn't know any of that was going on until I tried to go and like grab a bite to eat after stuff was over and we were still on lockdown. So they're like, I'm sorry, you can't go to the cafeteria. And I was pissed off more about that than I was about what had happened.
I've got a parent who is in a mental institution right now, finally, thank God. But I know the drill, because it took us years to get to the point where she was finally 24-hour established facility for mental patients, because they constantly release them. She's taking her medicine, she's fine now. And we're like, no, she's not fine. And the drill was that we would have to take her to the emergency room to be evaluated every time. And then they would put her in a facility, and that facility would release her. And it was just this constant drill over and over again. And until one time we were at the ER, and a security person was there that was also like a fireman. Like, he worked both different jobs like that. And she pulled a knife on him. And the doctors finally saw it for themselves, because we tell them she's aggressive, she's trying to harm herself, and they're like, they won't take your word for it. No, and when she's at the ER, she's Mrs. Sweet and kind and quiet, and you're like, no way, but in the meantime, they're asking her questions, and she's like, there's a 2-inch man living in my closet. I owned a Genghis grill, and we're like, oh, I'm a foot model for an Asian doctor. And they're like, I see. But they're like, she's crazy, but she's not like violent. And I'm like, no, she's violent. And so I hate that the ERs have to be the people that go through this constantly. And it really does. Like, that's one of the things that our mental health in this country is sorely.
I can't imagine it with a family member, so I'm sorry. But also, I feel for you, because all I know is literally every single day, it's the same, like 3 people that we call the police on. And, say that they're doing some crazy thing, and they'll escort them out, and they just come right back every single, like in the same day. I have a guy he's HIV positive, and I only mention that because he has seizures because of alcoholism and other issues. And so he'll like fall and hit his head and stuff. And so we're calling 911, and he'll just come back the same day. He'll just come back to the same bench that we just had to pay to have deep cleaned. Like, we have to get special cleaning crews for fluids and stuff. and he'll come and sit on the same goddamn bench. And finally, because he's drunk in public, we started calling dispatch and saying he needs medical attention. But when you call dispatch, they send medical attention plus a cop, and his ass at least has to go to the drunk tank for the rest of that day so that he can't show up again till the next day. It's gotten it's crazy every single day, and it's because they don't see them being threatening, And in California we have laws where, for instance, you can have a knife on you as long as it's showing. So this one guy that they know is a known drug user comes in and gets in my face, and the cops literally patted me on the shoulder and walked out in front of him while he's screaming at me and patting his knife because his knife was visible, so he was allowed to have it. So, wow, I mean, we are so broken in this country in how we deal with these things.
Yeah, it's truth.
Yeah. Well, one of the facilities I used to work at that was on the border, like, they would have to wand everybody that came in. You'd have to go through metal detectors. And the whole entire point was that, like, if you did have a gun, because I worked in Texas, so it's like everybody had a gun.
Yeah.
You would just essentially, like, almost like it's like a coat check. You'd be like, oh, here's my gun. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bring this in with me. And they would just, like, secure it in somewhere, and then you could get it back. But it's like you could get it back, like, within 5 seconds, which means you could just turn around and shoot somebody. So it's weird. I mean, they try and keep facilities that way, but actually we had a code one time where we're doing CPR on somebody, and just to get a better angle, you kind of have to, like, get onto the bed and get actually over somebody's chest, because if he was a bigger guy, so you had to, like, get actually onto the bed. And I switched with somebody, and they felt something against this guy's pocket the whole time we're coding him. Eventually they pronounced him, and we're going through all the post-mortem stuff so that, we get everything ready so that the family can see them. And we find out that what the tech felt was a hot and cocked gun. Like, it was, and in that situation, I mean, you don't have time to wand down somebody that's coding and needs CPR, but I mean, God forbid, like, if it fell out of his pocket, it could have accidentally, had an accidental discharge or whatever and shot somebody.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, now we got another problem. Somebody's now shot.
So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's this weird sort of thing where you're just like, cool, that's my life, I guess, where you have
exactly
people coming in who have guns and weapons on them. You have to ask people too, do you have any weapons on you? And most people are truthful if they're not there for nefarious reasons. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I have my gun. And then you just tell them, well, you could either secure it or we have to secure it. So,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, we see it all the time. And depending on which states I go to for my various contracts, it's either, oh, okay, you can just put it away and, like, keep it in your purse, or you have to just turn it over to security, and then they can turn it over to you once you're discharged. But I just think it's so weird. I'm just like, oh, yeah, there's a firearm right here in your purse, ma'am. Do you mind checking that before we continue your medical care?
Yeah. And that's what scares me, because my mom lives in Texas. It's my mother. And all those times that they kept releasing her, she could have walked to Walmart and bought a gun. Like, right. And I lost sleep for years until finally she got so bad that they just couldn't, by law, release her anymore. And it's crazy to me. Like, we'd get the call, oh, we released her last night. We have no idea where she's at, and have to find her and get her set up in a home, and then count until the next she does something else that we have to take her back to the emergency room and do the whole thing. And then she goes into the institution and then starts taking her medication and does what she needs to do. And then they release her and she stops taking her medication. And then there we go. It was years and years of that. And it was just boggled my mind, like, how they make, it's easier than ever to buy a gun, and then yet they won't keep people that need to not be buying a gun away.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, make it easy to buy a gun, but leave the people that are freaking crazy in lockdown then, So anyway, I feel for you, because I know that that's the first step of getting a person admitted, is you have to freaking take them to the ER. So I'm sure You
Well,
know,
we
I
see
just
a lot
want to
of
give you a
people like
fucking
that.
book. I don't want to, deal with your medical stuff. Sorry. Like, I want
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
to be safe
too.
and be okay, but that's not what I signed up to do with my life. So
exactly. You're like,
that's a
here's
little.
a book. Here's a self-help book on being
I'm like,
crazy.
just stop
Good luck.
looking at
You're gonna have to
porn
be
and stop taking a knife to me and stop like pooping on the property and we'll be fine. Like,
It's just like the
Yeah.
simple, like those are the 3 rules I think that we just need to like live all of our lives by. Is
Life living words. Exactly.
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
weapons, no inappropriate pooping, and no porn. Thanks very
Exactly.
much.
Yeah,
Yep.
at least
No
in
porn in the
public.
life.
Now, if
Yeah.
you want to watch porn on your own, that's perfectly
That's
fine
privacy
with
of
me.
your own
But
home.
can
I'll
we
check
not
out a
share it with the
laptop
whole
to you. Go
library?
find a spot in the library. Just don't do it where everyone else can see it.
Yeah, that's hysterical. All right, so number 2. This one's interesting. You know I'm gonna like this one. Creepy computers coming on by themselves.
Yeah. So this is not limited to like one hospital or anything, but ghosts are in every hospital. I hate to tell
Yeah.
people who don't believe in ghosts, but you should because they're everywhere. People die. People die in the ER. You don't think that we don't have people like spirits or anything interfering with stuff, because we do. And it's really awful sometimes because they'll just shut down monitors. The ghost will just shut down a monitor midway through doing something and it'll just shut down. No reason. No reason
Wow.
at all. Same thing with computers. I have not seen this, but I've been in a couple places where they say that like you can actually see like, the actual entity or whatever at the end of some of your patients' beds. So one of my friends who's a respiratory therapist said that in one of the hospitals she was working at, she had been working with a patient for a while who was on comfort care, who had a trach and stuff, and needed the extended tube, and so they put one in their throat. And she said that she went in one night to check her patient at like 2 a.m. and there was somebody at the end of the bed. Like there was a person at the end of the bed, which was weird because this person hadn't had any visitors except for medical staff the whole night. And she went and she like looked and tried to be like, hello. And the person at the end of the bed didn't turn. So she went to go grab her supplies and came back. So something that took like 30 seconds and then the person was gone. And she went up to the desk and was like, hey, was there somebody, was there a family member that was in there? And everyone was like, no, nobody's been in there for, the whole night except us. And she was like, oh, because there was definitely a person in there like a couple minutes ago. And I guess they were like, oh, no, because she was a traveler, too. And they're like, oh, no, that's one of our ghosts that always is around this floor. Like, they just were just like, oh, yeah, that's one of our ghosts.
Nonchalant.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of our ghosts. She's fine. So
Neat.
the respiratory therapist was like, what?
Someone could have told me this in advance.
Oh,
No
what? One
shit.
of your ghosts? And so she was like, it was a little freaky working there the rest of my contract, because I would always be like, is this a real person or is this one of the ghosts?
Like poke,
Oh
you
my
see someone, you
God.
like poke them. You're like, sorry, I just have to test.
But that
Wow.
was like more in comfort care ICU stuff. And in the ER, yeah, you do codes on people, and obviously, unfortunately, they do die. But you'll see like your monitors one of my monitors just randomly will print off EKG rhythms. So when you put people on a heart monitor, and it'll print it for people who there's no patients in those rooms, it'll just start printing off strips, like rhythm strips, as if somebody's in there. And that happened like one time when I had a patient who did die. And then like a couple hours later, we turned over the room, which is, I always think the creepiest part when people, oh, this is so weird. But like when you have to bring bodies to the morgue, and you have to clean the bed and do all this stuff. And so you'll get a body to the morgue, and then you'll get a new patient in that bed, and you almost want to turn to them and be like, did you know somebody died in your bed like 3 hours ago? And then walk out of the room and just see what they're going to do. Like I've
Wow.
always been tempted to do that, but I feel like I would maybe get a patient complaint if I just decided to be like, hey, someone died in your bed 2 hours ago. And then
I would shit my pants. Somebody said that to me.
But sometimes you'll get like the rhythm strips and stuff like printing off, and you'll be like, oh, well, there's no one in this room. So I guess it's maybe the ghost of somebody that's like died
Walk
there.
away whistling.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
You're like, I got news for you, honey. Your heart not beating anymore. Wow,
But-
that's cool.
Yeah. there's some ghost stories out there, and there's some stuff that just can't be explained. I mean, honestly, like I said, people who say they don't believe in ghosts, just spend a night in some ERs and ICUs, and I think you'll switch that mindset up pretty fast, because there's some things that you're like, no, I saw somebody there at the end of that hallway or at the end of that bed, and they're not there anymore because they're a ghost.
Because they died.
It's just like, I see dead people.
Yes, literally, and, well, no, literally. No.
Literally.
You see them dead on the platter, on the bed, and then you see them dead after they're dead, just hanging out.
On the slab.
Oh, God. Okay. Number one, you didn't really give much detail, but...
Oh, I've been waiting for this one.
Maggot
foot.
Maggot foot. We're all chanting maggot foot.
Make a shirt of it like Jerry.
Exactly.
Hashtag
if you say that to somebody who's like named Jerry nowadays, they're just like, what?
I'm sure they've heard it by now.
No, I met like a teenager named Jerry, which I was like, that's unfortunate. And I was like, Jerry, and he looked at me and I was like, never mind.
And then you felt old because he was like, I don't know what that is.
So old.
Let me tell you how I felt old the other day. I had a meeting with my team who are just right out of college. Both the girls that I manage are right out of college. And I was talking about a video that we need to make. And I'm like, the theme of the video is, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? And they were all like, just like deer in headlights. Like, and I'm like, well, never mind. Like, I'm old. Yeah. Like, I'm like, you don't know who Janet Jackson is? Like, seriously? Like, like, before you even start on this video, look it up. Like, I will not allow you to not know who freaking Janet Jackson is.
You're like, we hired a new librarian who didn't understand an Office Space reference, and we were just get out.
Exactly. Anyway, all right, give us maggot foot, lady. I'm ready. I'm preparing myself.
All right. So I had to get like a drink of water just to be like, all right, let me prepare myself. So this woman, okay, I have to go back in time and be there real quick. So we get a call from the ambulance that they're bringing in a lady who had been at one of the rehab facilities. She was an older lady. She had been having some foot issues. She too had a wound on her. It was more up her leg. No, it was actually on her foot. That hadn't been healing quite right, and she'd been in and out of the wound care center to get the dressings changed and everything. And then that morning, she had noticed that there was blood on her sock, and she became concerned because she's older. And the facility was like, well, they couldn't control the bleeding, so they wrapped it up, and they called the ambulance, and they were transporting him there. Cool, fine, we'll get a room set up, all that good stuff. She comes in, and at that point, my nose had been attuned at that point. So she comes rolling by, and I'm just like, oh, she's got a dead foot. Okay, all right, cool. I'm used to the smell. And her foot, though, was not wrapped up like with Ace or anything. It was wrapped up with a plastic like grocery bag. And and I was like, what? Because she came from a facility that has healthcare, whatever. And then I was like, I can't spend too much time trying to understand that, because that's just wasted energy. So we take that down. She has like a really specific, somewhat complex type of dressing on there, but because she's gone to wound care, we were like, okay, we know how to take this down. You just have to take it down in steps. So we go through the first step and we get to the underdressing of it. And then she said it's painful. So we're like, okay, we'll give you some medicine to get through everything. So we wait for the medicine. And then we get down to cutting down the rest of the dressing. And I'm in there with the provider and another tech, and we're taking off the layers slowly and slowly. At that point, I'm just like, wow. Now looking back on it, I'm like, that's like almost like painfully opening up a gift, and you're about to see what's inside. And it's not a Nintendo.
Head is in the box.
It's not an N64. That's for sure. So we're undoing it, and we get to this final layer, and the provider was like, all right, let me take a look at it. So she lifts up the little bit that's left of the dressing, and maggots just everywhere. all of a sudden it's just maggots like underneath
That's
it.
too much.
Everybody just kind of like forgot where we were for a second. We all had like these human reactions, because in healthcare, especially emergency room medicine, you try and like be professional all the way throughout. You know, you're trying to be like, I'm here to be calm, because if I start to freak out, you're going to freak out as a patient or as a family member. Nobody had that sense. Everybody was just like, oh, what? And the provider literally like gagged and dropped the rest of the dressing onto the bed. These maggots are everywhere on this woman's foot.
Oh my God. I'm gagging right now and I wasn't even there. Holy shit.
So I went a little green and was like, I'm going to just step out real quick. The tech did too. We're out there like trying to like breathe through it. And we left the provider kind of in there, because I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm going to throw up into like the trash can right here if I stay in here. So like 30 seconds later, we walked back in, and she had covered it up a little bit. And the provider was like, you know what? Let me call real quick, because sometimes with wound care, you get a little bit, I guess, medieval, and you can put medical maggots to help with wound healing in some cases. So we're like, let's call over there. Maybe they put that on there, and maybe we're just like, oh, we just don't see it a lot. They did not put that on there. Those were not medical maggots. It turns out she had her dressing changed, and like within the 3 days between changes, she had like festered this whole entire civilization of maggots on her foot. So we had to soak her foot like 2 or 3 times just to get all the maggots off.
Oh my God.
And then wipe it down, and then actually look at the wound, and then she had to get her foot, her leg amputated. It was awful. Like her whole entire, basically from her knee down was all just necrotic, and it was just dying and rotting, and then you had the maggots at the end of her foot that were already starting to eat. So that has always been my number one thing, takes the cake. If something passes that, I already don't want to be there in the future for whatever that's going to be, but I'm sure it'll happen. But right now, that's number one, is maggot foot. That's the number one.
Well, look, if something does surpass that one, you got to come back on the show and kind of and let us know what beat it out.
Fair enough. You will be the first ones. I'll be like, guess what happened?
Oh my God.
Maggot foot's number 2.
We will put that story in our weird news, and you can come in and talk about it before. Like, all right, she's found a winner on top of her maggot foot story.
That's right. Maggot foot's bumped.
Oh my God, that is. I cannot even freaking imagine like where you have to be in your head that you would have an injury like that bad, and then B, like, how do you in your head like move forward knowing that you had maggots eating your body? Like, oh God, like I can't even.
She looked at us. I remember this too, because we did it. We all had that reaction of, oh my God, are those really maggots moving on your foot? Yep, they are. And like how the professional facade just dropped.
Yeah.
And she looked at all of us and went, oh, is it bad?
Oh God.
Oh my God.
I think that's part of the reason why I was like, I need to leave this room, because I was gonna probably turn and be like, it's fucking awful, but
I don't know. You think maggots on your foot is a good thing? You know, like, of course it's bad.
Right?
Jesus.
And she was just like, is it bad? Yes, it's awful. And you're not gonna keep this leg.
No.
You just need that one doctor to come in and try and break off the foot, but he was not there.
Yeah, too bad he wasn't there.
I know, and I see it like a common theme is a lot of these people are ending up losing their shit, man.
Just, literally losing their shit.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Both their limbs and their poop.
That's right.
So that's a hard act to follow.
Well, I think. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was going to tell me the poo story. Do we have time for the poo story?
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to say, I think the lesson that we've learned from Kim's stories is go to the fucking doctor when you hurt yourself for crying out loud. Anyway, yes, tell your poo story, Moni.
So you know how I like me some not poo. Even the worst. This is in my top 3 of like bodily fluid and poo stories, maybe top 3, top 5. This is just the most recent. So I am, usually the only manager on the first floor, or often I am. And so kind of the staff will come to me first when they get a complaint from somebody who's using the library. And so I get to be the first responder to all the fun stuff. So somebody came to me from the customer service desk and was like, this lady just complained, or no, not a lady, because it had to have been a dude. A patron just complained that something is bad in the men's room. And the thing is, bad in the men's room. One of my colleagues had someone commit suicide in the ladies' room one time. Yeah. I had a woman that used to tear apart the ladies' room and put like period stuff all over the place. That we've had people use drugs in there. We've had people have sex, and we've had people fight. So I'm like, bad in the men's room. I don't know. I'm like professional face, put my superhero fucking cape on, and I'm going in to figure out what the hell's going on. So I managed to get a male colleague to just clear the restroom before we endeavor upon what is bad. And he came out and he was like, yep, nope, that's bad. Okay, it's poo. And then we looked down and realized there's poo strewn across the lobby all the way out the door.
Stop it.
So
like a trail, like a horrible, like Hansel and Gretel.
Somebody, well, I have a feeling so it gets better.
The dingleberry.
Someone took a shit, in multiple places throughout the inside of the bathroom that weren't the toilet, and continued walking through it so that it was on their feet, on their shoes, as they walked out the door. And so I'm like, you have to imagine a busy place like a mall or something like that, where there's just a little, lobby kind of area. We do have cleanup crews that deal with these things for us, but you can't wait to do certain things like put signs up and, kind of quarantine the area. And people are just walking, tracking this poo now in and out. So God bless her. One of the other managers heard about this and came down, and she was like, I will pick up this poo, but I got to go grab, gloves and stuff like that. So I'm standing over the poo, like protecting it from being stepped on by anyone else. And I just was standing there for, it felt like forever. It wasn't. But I was like, is this a new low? Protecting poo? No, this is not even a new low. I've done worse here. So good. That's great. So we got it cleaned up and put the signs up and everything else. But later on, the same man that I just mentioned that comes in intoxicated and is HIV positive and all those things had one of his seizures, and we called 911. They came to get him. And the first thing they did while we were out there waiting, for the paramedics to arrive was they had him take his shoes off, and they pointed out to us that his shoes were covered in what I can only imagine was human feces. So they put his shoes in a bag to quarantine them. So now we also know who the culprit is for shitting all across the library lobby just a week ago.
Wow.
He's the mad pooper.
Yes. He's the drunk pooper. I'm like, the toilet was right there. Like, I don't understand why this. Well, I guess when you're so drunk, you can't aim for the toilet. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I just, this was not the worst thing. And that's sad. Usually it's vomit or even blood, but yeah, every once in a while it's poo. So
it's poo. All right. Like I said, like one of my first, I have visit dairies, and talk to the dairy farmers. And my very first visit, my boss, who explained to me, these are our bosses, and we go and we're respectful. It's going to be smelly. There's going to be some flies. There's going to be, don't show up wearing your Burberry Pashmina, wrap and holding your nose or, reacting in a disrespectful way, because this is their livelihood. And it's insulting if you act like this bothers you. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. I've smelled shit before, whatever. So I'm sitting in this pit talking to the dairy farmer while their cows are being milked, and one of them lifted its tail and sprayed shit all over me. And I didn't even blink. I'm just like, wow, really? That's interesting. And I'm covered in cow shit. And he's like, well, we better get you out of this pit. You got a little dirty. I'm like, yeah, I didn't notice. And I had to go back to the office, and I'm walking in towards my office. Sure enough, the CEO's there, and he walks out of his office and is like, nice. I'm like, yeah, covered in cow shit, so totally get the poo thing, but I don't think I could handle human poo. Like, I don't know what the difference is in my mind, but.
I don't know.
Well, and like you, it's the professional thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
it's the professional thing. Go ahead.
You go, Kim. You go.
Sorry, I just couldn't do that, man. I couldn't do that with the cows.
I can't say I'm okay with cow
I think I'd be better with the cows than the humans.
Yeah,
honestly. Just
hands down.
Yeah,
but standing over that poo, also trying like you, Christy, to do the professional thing where you're just like, people are walking in and out, and we do get some nosy library users like, what's going on? And I was like, everything's fine. Welcome to the library. I'm your friendly neighborhood librarian. They're like asking me questions. I'm like, go over there and ask those people because right now I'm otherwise occupied.
I may lose my shit if you don't leave me alone right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure it looked like I had done it because I'm standing over like nuggets, like.
Oh my God. What is wrong with people? Like, seriously, people are wild. That's the name of
it. Especially on the full moon.
Before we do all our closing stuff, Kim, why don't you talk about like just a shout out on your podcast and maybe give like some of the top shows that you have that are like your favorites or whatever, just real quick.
Oh, like my episodes and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so I mean my podcast in general is it's a mix between just medical topics and just some of the literal shit and maybe not so literal shit that I see in the ER. So you can find me on your favorite podcast listening app, or at least most of them. And if you can't, just let me know, I guess, on Twitter. It's pretty easy. I'm on Twitter on People Are Wild. So just look for the X-ray of a light bulb stuck in someone's butt, because that's my icon. So if that's something that's appealing to you, there are some episodes I could recommend for you.
Yeah,
a good place to start would definitely be the first episode is actually pretty good. It's about the last survivor that was pulled out of the Oklahoma City bombing and had to get her leg amputated without anesthesia in the rubble. So that's how I started out my podcast.
I lived in Oklahoma City when that bombing happened. That's crazy that that's your first episode.
1995.
Yep, it was nuts. I thought it was thunder. It woke me up, and I was like, "What was that? Thunder?" And went back to sleep.
No, it's just domestic terrorism. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was devastating once I woke up again and realized what it was. But yeah. Anyway, so that's a recommendation. Okay, what's another one?
Definitely Genital Hospital. That's
Genital Hospital.
Oh my God.
That's the episode where you know what? Now that I've done a few of these and seen some stuff, that's probably a part one of what will be ongoing in terms of just genital trauma that I've seen in the ER and or my friends have. So that's a good place to start too if you want to hear stories about how people get like cock rings stuck on them and how you have to remove those. And that happens quite a bit. And then there was another episode that I had not too long ago about STDs too. So if you want to get the talk from somebody who's actually in the ER and not your fifth grade health teacher, I guess you could listen to that too. But
that was a good one. I listened to that one. That was a good one. Yeah.
So the funny thing is, my dad listens to the podcast, and he'll give me critiques, and his critique on that show was that took me back to before I went over to Vietnam, except with a little bit more cussing. And I was like, what? What did he? What? What? So. But yeah, also my dad's on one of the episodes too. So that was the Mother's Day episode, was with my dad. So if you want to hear about a 70-year-old man talk about various things, there you go. You can listen to that episode as well. But yeah, cool, fun stuff in terms of the medical world. It is truly interesting, the people that you see in the ER, and People Are Wild. So that's the name of the podcast.
Woo! And the name of this episode.
Yeah, well, you've got a new fan in me. I'm definitely going to listen.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Well, I just wanted to say really quick that we have a giveaway going on Twitter. It is pinned to the top of our Twitter account, so you can't miss it. All you have to do is retweet the giveaway post and follow the Creepin' It Real show, and you could win one of our copper Creepin' It Real tumblers.
Which are awesome.
Yeah, Moni, I don't know if you got yours finally, and then I'll be delivering Yardley's to him. But so if you'd like to win one of them, we're giving away 3, and I'll be making that announcement. I believe it's July 3rd, whatever that Tuesday is. I'm not paying much attention.
Yeah, it's Tuesday because the 4th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, so that will be announced on the show and on Twitter July 3rd.
Nice.
So Yardley, you want to give us your all your stuff, where we find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at militant_marker.
Okay. And Moni, you have an announcement for next week's show.
Yeah, I'm not married to this, so like don't quote me, but there's been some recent developments in the field of serial killers, various ones, and I'd like to bring some news stories with the updates, including the smiley face murder theory. So we'll have to look forward to that. I'm not going to give any more information now, especially because I'm not sure if that's what we're doing. But as far as the socials, it's Moni Bear on Instagram and Rebel Moni on Twitter.
Awesome. And I am at creepin_it on Twitter. And then, of course, we've got the Creepin' It Real Show on Facebook and Instagram. They're easy to find. And head over to Twitter and say hello and retweet so you can maybe win a tumbler. And Kim, thank you so much for coming on and sharing these crazy-ass stories, because I, for one, was heavily entertained. So everybody go check out People Are Wild, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Thanks so much for having me.
They stood back girl from Stanley Star.